My name's Tony Filippini. I'm a senior transit planner with the planning team here at DART. And what we are here tonight is our first phase of public outreach for our update to our long range planning effort that we do here at DART, something that we do periodically about every 5 years or so. So this is just the first set of meetings that we're doing. Tonight, we are specifically reaching out to communities on the east side of the metro, Pleasant Hill, Altoona, and Bondurant. But of course, everyone is invited and welcome to participate this evening. We'll just dive a little more into those areas in this presentation. But as you'll see on our DART website, we have plenty of meetings forthcoming, and you're more than welcome to join anyone that you choose to. So I'm going to go through a couple of slides tonight to express the type of services that DART has, and then get into some of the specifics on the planning that we do here at DART, and then get into the things that we're going to look for and plan for in the future. These are the things that we're asking for input this evening about, things that the community is or yourself are looking for from DART services to connect you to places in the metro and to provide a better service as DART continues to grow with our region and provide services that are appropriate for each community. So just as we get started, some ground rules tonight. As Rachel mentioned, we are starting out muted with everyone, but we will have opportunities for you to come off mute, or at any time, please feel free to send any questions into the chat box. Another thing that we're doing, and we're going to encourage everyone to get on either after this meeting, or if you need to jump off at some time, to go to our website and take our survey for this phase of public outreach. So at the bottom there, ridedart.com/plan, and I think Rachel might put a link in the chat. But that's what we really do encourage you to do, and to share it with other people so that they're aware and they can provide feedback as well. So just to get started on some basics about DART, there might be just one service that you do or ride today, but DART does do a number of services. One of the ones that people think of most often is our fixed route bus service. So these are our larger buses that travel our community on a route, and these are ones that have a specific schedule, so you know when it's going to arrive and get you to your destination. We do have other services, such as our paratransit service. This is a service that supplements our fixed route for those that are unable to get to our fixed route bus services due to a disability or another encumbrance that we just can't create accessibility to that route. So another service that we do have is what's called rideshare, where we have longer distance vans that are organized so people can carpool to either employers or areas that they need to get to within the region. As you can see, work trips are the #1 reason that people ride DART. And but there is a multitude of reasons, and you don't even need a reason to ride DART. But we do ask, and people ride it for health and medical reasons, for trips, and then also for shopping and leisure trips. So we really are something that everyone can use, and everyone, and those that do use it for all sorts of different reasons. Overall, DART provides service to 12 areas of the community that are members of the Transit Authority. So these 12 jurisdictions, we continue to evaluate and add to the network so people can access the areas. What you see here is a system map, what we refer to, and it outlines all the fixed routes that we operate, along with, in those shaded areas, locations where we have an on-call service where you can call a day ahead and reserve a trip to get to any place within that area. Another item that we've added in 2019 that we'll talk more about is that bluish area shaded in Urbandale, and that's what we call Flex Connect, a mobility on demand service that we're piloting. And we'll get into more discussion as we get further in the presentation about that service and possible other ones. So our planning process is continual. And over the years, we are always open to getting feedback and seeing ways that we can improve our service. Some of the general things that we've hear over time, and we're always trying to find ways to address, are things that we hear from our customers, such as wanting a shorter travel time while they're on board, adding more locations in the metro as our metro grows that they can access using DART services, and then additional weekend, evening services that go earlier in the morning or later at night to respond to either work demands or other trip services or other trip needs that happen throughout the day. In addition, just additional amenities for customers waiting for a bus stop in benches or shelters, especially with all the different types of weather we have in all 4 seasons here in Iowa. So just to review, before we start looking forward, we do want to review some of the improvements that we've made over the last couple of years. In 2018, we have added more early service. So those are to help bring people to their jobs if they have an earlier shift, such as 6 a.m. or even a little earlier than that. We've also improved our midday service to have more buses and more options throughout the day. In addition, we've made a number of route improvements, such as adding a new crosstown route, which allows people to travel throughout the region without having to go through downtown, which we understand really saves our customers a lot of time. In addition, we've added service on Route 4 to the Hy-Vee commissary, over towards Ankeny. And then in addition, 93 added service to Grimes, and adding some additional services to major apartments and places that people live. In addition, and specifically for tonight, highlighting that have been adding service starting in December on an extension of Route 17, which currently goes to Altoona. But starting in December, we're also running additional trips into Bondurant to the new Amazon facility lined up with the shift times. And we're continuing to improve those services, and very quickly we're finding ridership. So we're excited about these expansions to our service, and are very much looking forward to addressing additional needs. Just some other things that we've made large improvements on over the last few years are upgrades to our fare box, technologies with providing new ways to trip plan and buy your fare and pay for your fare using the MyDART app that's available on all platforms. In addition, we've made improvements and upgrades to our fleet, which are the buses that you would ride on. So adding 7 electric vehicles that are currently on the street today, which just went into service this past year. And then in addition, continuing to renew our fleet and restore, or rather replace, older vehicles with newer ones as their life, as they get towards the end of life and become a little more expensive to maintain over time. So these are some of those more capital improvements that we've made over the last several years. So now as we start looking more towards our planning for DART, one of the reasons that this planning is very important is because the region is growing and has been growing for the last several decades. So as our regional plans are done, and as our local cities are preparing for growth, that's something that we recognize too, that the region is growing, and that we're going to see a lot more people that live in our area, and as our region grows larger, additional needs for these services become greater. In addition, we're also seeing that there's new tools in our toolbox to provide these trips. And so we want to evaluate and find what are the best ways and what are some new ways that we might be able to incorporate and provide a great service that meets the needs of our community, along with meeting all the other resource constraints that might also be here. To highlight some of those new tools in the toolbox, we're looking at a greater participation in share type mobility, such as car share or bike share, and the growth with what's known as a transportation network company, such as Uber and Lyft, where you can request a ride at any time and be picked up on demand. So we're looking at what we like to hear more about as we get on to our presentation is how some of these new or different ways of providing services are ways that we can incorporate into our service portfolio, or make sure that you're able to access those when you do ride DART services. So, as I alluded to, we're embarking on a new long-range plan, and our goals of this is to optimize the service that we provide today. In addition, is to identify the evolving transportation needs in our region. As I mentioned, our region is growing. To evaluate these new services and delivery models that we're starting to see people use. So we want to be responsive to that. And then in addition, to develop that long-term vision that incorporates all those needs. Just to give a general sense, we're in the beginning of this process where we're evaluating and getting an understanding of the current condition. And that's what we're doing this spring. And we're in this first phase of public input where we want to hear about opportunities or ways that DART can improve to make sure that we're able to meet the needs of our customer. This summer, all of that public input, along with the data that we receive and learn, will be put into draft recommendations, and then we'll come back out to the community to get feedback on what those recommendations are, and in turn, have the community develop and decide what our forthcoming plan will be. So just to get into some specifics for especially our communities this evening that we're focusing on, is our existing services and to get an understanding of how they're working today. So we do have 4 general ways that we design routes. The first, the core routes are a number of routes that we run. These are ones that run all day, every day, 7 days a week, and are ones that you would expect to see every 20 to 30 minutes for a very flexible and easy to use type of a service. In addition, we also have routes that are maybe not ridden as much, but are ones that identify critical areas for us to reach, especially during our commute times. These are what we would consider a coverage route. They're only going to operate at very specific times of the day to connect people into the larger network. In addition, we have a number of express routes. These are designed really to get people a long distance in a short amount of time. So there's very few stops, and these routes are also operating on the express, on the interstate, so that they're quick and get people primarily into the large job centers downtown, and then also connecting that part of the network back into the communities where those express routes go. And then in addition, we do have some on-call services, such as in Bondurant, where we have a smaller bus that provides a door-to-door trip when requested by the customer. And these operate at very specific times. The schedules are available on our website. Some of the information that we are gathering is how our network is operating today. So this is, again, our system map. The yellow lines outline the path that our fixed route buses operate. And the blue dots in order of magnitude, so the larger the dot is the larger number of boardings at a particular bus stop. And the smaller dot represents a fewer number of passengers boarding. I'll mention our data was collected in the fall of 2019 before the pandemic. So the numbers in the past year are different, but we're anticipating that things will return to a normal. And this is something that we have collected and have good data on. So just so you, just to present that, so you know when this was taken. Specifically on the east side, we have a number of fixed routes. In Pleasant Hill, we have what we would consider one of those coverage routes that only operates at commute times a day, which is in response to the number of passengers, but also the number of passengers are very much related to the amount of service that it has. So it performs well the times of the day that it is running. Some of our larger routes or our core, for example, would be our Hubble Avenue Route 17 to Altoona. And those larger dots are ones that we see at the Walmart in Altoona, along with the shops, the outlets in Altoona, in that growing commercial area there. So we do have a number of trips that are being made and people boarding. What I don't have on this map yet is, as I mentioned in December, an addition or an extension of that route along Adventureland to the Amazon facility in Bondurant. So those are some additional trips. As I mentioned, this data was taken in 2019 before that extension was put into service. So so that's why it's not on the map, but we are recognizing the amount of the ridership that we currently have there. In Altoona as well, there's a route that goes furthest east with small blue dots on that. And again, those are express routes that operate just a couple of times a day. So that would reflect the reason that the ridership is smaller than what you get on a core route that operates all day long. As I had talked about the core routes, we're highlighting those routes that operate throughout the day with a lot of service, and it really lines up with the large amount of riders that are using those services. So this is just demonstrating that a large amount of DART customers are utilizing these routes, and that we're designing these routes to very much reflect and serve the riders currently using it. So we're being responsive to the amount of customers with the amount of service that we're providing. Some other key findings that we've identified so far is to better connect the growing job locations and housing, and to ensure that we're providing access for the workforce to meet all the growth in these areas. That we're also finding that the regional travel patterns are not always matching up with our bus routes as they're designed today. In particular, we're seeing travel patterns between Altoona and Pleasant Hill on the east side, in which we don't have a north and south connection without going west into downtown and then maybe coming back with one of the other services, which would take a lot longer than a direct north and south type of a route. What we're seeing though is just that there is a growing amount of travel, largely with personal automobiles, making that movement on the eastern side of the metro. Just to touch on COVID-19, the pandemic has certainly impacted our ridership for a multitude of reasons, and we have adjusted our service to respond to that. What we have found though is that our local services on the weekday have retained just under half of our typical amount of trips. And this is over a time in which essential trips were really encouraged to be the only trips that you make, and also in light of a lot of people working from home. So what we are finding, we are providing a good number of, or a large number of trips that are essential, that users find essential, or that users are working jobs that are essential. So even more so, we saw our weekend ridership maintain about 70% of the normal levels, even during that time. So it definitely demonstrates that we provide a very important service, especially during that time. That's continuing, but hopefully getting better as the months continue on. So we're going to get into sort of the long range plan, sort of the longer range items. This is just maybe a pause point to sort of reflect on the current conditions that we're seeing, and also a reminder to take the survey. And this is sort of the vision casting or new ideas that I know a lot of our audience have studied quite a bit, especially recently, and might not be introducing anything new, but happy to talk more and love hearing more of what the desires and some what those opportunities might look like. So certainly, as we're going through this process, we're very interested to hear, are there where people are going and where service is needed. And we want to meet these goals of giving customers what they want, which is true in any consumer type of business. So minimizing that wait and travel time, giving people direct access to the places that they need to go in a convenient way, and one that's usable, as our commissioner mentioned, in terms of just being able to access these locations, bus stops, especially in our weather, that can be challenging. So as we go through our study, we are looking at a number of things that go into this process. So just to sort of recap that, I've gone over some of the information that we're seeking, some of the data analysis of how things are being used now, and the productivity, and how the region is growing, and what that looks like. And the other sort of large element is that public input. And that's what this process is, to get more detail on the customer request and business feedback and responses from our customers or potential customers. And then in addition, obviously there's a constraint, or just needed to bring it all together in a way that is achievable, that we can be successful the way that we're set up here. So, all that comes down to is what our transit service is going to look like in the future. And all those things go into how we decide where the buses go, or where the services go, and when they run, and how they operate. So just to review, transit's not just the bus anymore. And there's other vehicles, as you're aware, with our Flex Connect partnership in a portion of Urbandale, Northwest Des Moines, where we partner with Yellow Cab and Uber to fulfill trips to bus stops, sort of a first mile, last mile type of program. There's also other programs around the country that are being forged where the transit operators are operating a service kind of like that, on demand, no sort of 24-hour reservation needed, for the general public to request a trip in maybe areas that fixed route buses might not operate, or might be a little harder to get to. So, we have some images here of vans or different vehicles we can use to make that more better operated trip. And then in addition, interfacing with other elements of the transportation network, because usually where you're going is not right outside the bus's door, and that's same for a car trip or anything. So everything is somewhat a multi-use trip. And so we are very interested to hear of how people might use different things as B-cycle might become more prevalent in more parts of the metro, or if there's car sharing that companies that might be started in certain parts or all parts of the metro, and how DART will remain or be part of people's commute in addition to how they use other things. So we're very interested to hear people's responses in terms of those other services, how they like them, if they use them in other areas, and what they would like to see in the region, and how DART can be a part of their trip as well. So some of the things that we're looking at in our plan is to adjust some of our ways that we serve and operate trips. So as I mentioned, it isn't always the bus or a fixed route as we traditionally know it, and it might be replacing some of those or using a different method, such as a partnership with Uber, or doing our own operated mobility on demand type of a service. And then evaluating how the areas that we don't currently serve today would be best served in a meaningful way that's good for the customer, as well as something that is achievable for the regional transit authority to perform in the large area that we have. So again, this is just a reminder of sort of where we're at, and is a conclusion of what will be presented at all these meetings over the next couple of weeks. So with that, if there's any additional things, and again, a plug to the survey, and encouraging all others that you know to do that survey as well.